At the 2026 Warrior Games in San Antonio, Texas, just before attending NBA Finals Game 5, Harry wasn't standing at a distance. He wasn't just giving a speech and leaving. He joined the family program, picked up a serving role, and helped serve barbecue lunch to competitors, families, and staff. And sometimes, the most powerful moments are not the ones happening under bright lights, behind microphones, or surrounded by a perfectly planned stage. Sometimes it is a simple plate of food, a simple conversation, a simple moment where someone says, "I met him." And for the people who were there, that moment became something they will probably remember for years. Prince Harry was once again focused on the people right in front of him, the competitors, the families, the supporters, the people who have sacrificed, struggled, adapted, and shown unbelievable strength. And that is exactly what the Warrior Games have always been about. Not titles, not status, not a shiny moment for a camera. People. The Fisher House Foundation shared a reel showing Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, joining the Warrior Games family program and serving barbecue cooked by the United Airlines barbecue team. The caption described it as a special lunch with a special surprise. And honestly, that description fits perfectly because for many attendees, the surprise was not just seeing a famous person, it was seeing someone they associate with this mission actually showing up and being part of the experience. There is something very different about a person who walks into a room and immediately asks, "How can I help?" instead of asking, "Where am I supposed to stand?" And that difference matters, because the Warrior Games is not just another event on a calendar. This is an event built around resilience, around recovery, around reminding wounded, ill, and injured service members that their stories do not end with an injury. They continue, they evolve, they become something powerful. And Prince Harry's connection to this world goes back more than a decade. Before the Invictus Games became a global event, before millions of people around the world watched athletes compete, before the phrase adaptive sports became more widely recognized, Harry was already involved with the Warrior Games. This is where the inspiration began. The idea that sport could help people rebuild confidence, reconnect with themselves, and find a new sense of purpose. That is why his appearance carries a different weight. He is not someone arriving because the cameras are there. The cameras are there because the mission has been there. And that is a huge difference. The moment was also special because people attending began sharing their own experiences. One person posted that their niece and nephew were served lunch by Prince Harry at the Warrior Games in Texas. Think about that. For some people, it was just lunch. For those families, it became a story, a memory, a photograph they will probably keep. And that is the strange thing about human connection. A 5-minute interaction can mean more than a grand speech. Humans are funny creatures like that. You can give someone a perfectly crafted, inspirational message, but sometimes handing them a plate of food and having a genuine conversation is what stays with them. The image of Harry standing there, not separated from everyone else, is what caught attention, because it showed participation, not observation. There's a difference. A lot of public figures attend events. They arrive, they wave, they leave. The whole process can sometimes feel like watching a very expensive parade of people being introduced to other people they're never actually allowed to meet. But moments like this break that barrier. Here was Harry doing something ordinary in an extraordinary environment, serving lunch, talking, being present. And that's why the reaction from attendees was so positive, because people notice when someone is actually engaged. They noticed when someone remembers the reason they're there. The Warrior Games are not about celebrating perfection. They're about celebrating determination. Athletes who have faced challenges most people cannot imagine step onto the field, court, track, or competition area and redefine what strength looks like. They show that an injury does not erase a person's identity, it does not remove their abilities, it does not end their story. And Harry has repeatedly highlighted that message. The Invictus Games grew from the same philosophy, a belief that competition can create community, that sport can rebuild confidence, that people should be recognized for what they can do, not reduced to what happened to them. That is why seeing him serve lunch feels connected to the bigger picture. It was not a random photo opportunity. It was another small piece of the same message: respect, community, support. And perhaps that's why moments like these often confuse people who only look at celebrity culture. They expect everything to be about glamour, but service is often quiet.
It does not always come with a dramatic soundtrack. Sometimes it looks like standing next to a grill, carrying plates, and making someone's day a little brighter. The reactions online showed that many people appreciated exactly that, not because he was a prince, but because he was acting like a person. And that is what the families at the Warrior Games experienced: a person. Someone willing to step into the moment, someone willing to participate, someone willing to share space with them. The interesting thing is how quickly a simple act can reveal priorities, because anyone can appear when everything is polished and controlled. The real test is what someone does when the moment is informal, when there is no grand stage, when the focus is not on them. That is where character tends to show. And this moment was exactly that. The focus was never supposed to be Prince Harry. The focus was the athletes, the families, the community. But ironically, by putting the focus elsewhere, he drew attention back to the very thing the event represents: the people. The Warrior Games have always been about showing the world that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes strength is competing. Sometimes strength is recovering. Sometimes strength is simply showing up after everything you have been through. And for many attendees, seeing someone like Harry show up in that environment reinforced that message. Because recognition matters, support matters, feeling seen matters, especially for families who have spent years supporting loved ones through difficult journeys. The family members are often the invisible heroes. They are the people cheering from the sidelines, the people helping during recovery, the people adapting alongside their loved ones. So when the Fisher House Foundation highlighted that Harry served competitors, families, and staff, it was important that families were included, because they're part of the story too. A warrior's journey is rarely walked alone. There are parents, partners, children, friends, communities, everyone who helps someone keep moving forward. And a lunch like this becomes a gathering point, a moment where everyone gets to breathe, talk, laugh, and connect. The world often focuses on the biggest moments, the speeches, the ceremonies, the headlines, but life is usually made up of smaller moments: a conversation, a handshake, a shared meal, a memory. And sometimes those are the moments people carry with them, because years from now, someone might not remember every speech from an event, but they may remember, "I was there. I met him. He served us lunch." That is the kind of impact that cannot be manufactured. It cannot be forced. It has to happen naturally. And that is exactly why this Warrior Games moment resonated. And perhaps the most interesting part of this entire moment is how ordinary it looked. Because sometimes people expect impact to always announce itself. They expect a dramatic entrance, a huge statement, a headline that practically screams for attention. But the reality is often much quieter. A person steps forward, they help, they listen, they make someone feel valued, and then they move on. That is what made this Warrior Games appearance stand out. Prince Harry was not there trying to become the story. He was there because the people at the center of the story mattered: the athletes, the families, the volunteers, the entire community built around these games. And that is something the Warrior Games has always represented. The idea that service does not stop when someone leaves the battlefield. The idea that recovery is not just about physical healing, it's about identity, confidence, purpose. Finding a new chapter. The competitors at these games are not defined by what happened to them. They are defined by what they continue to accomplish. And that is why the atmosphere of the event is so different. It is not about looking back only, it is about looking forward. Every competitor walking into these games carries a story. Some stories are about overcoming injuries. Some are about adapting to a completely new reality. Some are about rebuilding after moments that changed their lives forever. But every story shares one thing. They kept going. And seeing Harry participate in a simple activity like serving lunch fits into that message. Because support is not always a grand gesture. Sometimes support is showing up. Sometimes it is being part of the environment. Sometimes it is saying, you matter and your journey matters. The Fisher House Foundation sharing the moment also highlighted something important, the role of families. Because behind every competitor is often a network of people who have supported them through every stage. The family members who waited, the friends who encouraged, the loved ones who adjusted their own lives to help someone else rebuild theirs. They deserve recognition too. And that is why a family program matters. It creates a space where everyone involved is included, not just the athletes, not just the officials, everyone, the whole community. And when attendees began posting their own experiences, that added another layer. Because there's a difference between an official announcement and someone saying, my family was there, my relatives experienced this, my niece and nephew were served lunch by Prince Harry. Those personal stories are what make moments feel real. The internet is a strange place. A person can post a carefully edited image and people will immediately create 1,000 theories. Because apparently humans cannot simply look at a photo without launching a full investigation worthy of a detective novel. But a genuine moment tends to cut through all of that noise. A smile, a reaction, a memory. Those things are harder to manufacture. And this is why Harry's involvement with the Warrior Games continues to be talked about, because it connects to a bigger mission. The Invictus Games did not appear out of nowhere. It grew from the belief that wounded service members deserved a global platform, a platform where their achievements were celebrated, where their courage was visible, where the world could see them beyond their injuries. That idea has become bigger than any one person. But the original connection remains important. Harry returning to the Warrior Games is a reminder of where the journey began, the roots, the foundation, the original inspiration. And there is something meaningful about returning to the beginning. It shows consistency. It shows that the work was not only about creating a successful event, it was about creating something that would continue helping people. Because anyone can start something. The difficult part is continuing to show up, year after year, through changes, through criticism, through noise, through distractions. And that is exactly what makes this moment interesting. It was not a celebrity appearance, it was a continuation of a relationship with a community. A continuation of a mission. A continuation of a promise to highlight people whose stories deserve attention. The athletes competing at the Warrior Games are the reason everyone is there. They are the reason the event exists. They are the reason these moments matter. And for them, meeting someone they associate with that mission can be meaningful. Not because of a title, not because of a famous name, but because of what that person represents to them. Support, recognition, encouragement. There is also something powerful about seeing someone known globally step into a very normal role. Serving food is not glamorous. It is not a carefully choreographed royal engagement. There is no grand ceremony, no elaborate setup. Just a person helping another person. And maybe that is exactly why it connects. Because people understand effort. They understand kindness. They understand when someone is genuinely present. A lot of public life today is built around appearances. Everything is photographed, everything is analyzed, every movement gets turned into a headline. Sometimes it feels like even a person drinking a cup of coffee could become a 3-hour debate online. Humanity really did invent technology and then immediately used it to argue about everything. Incredible achievement. But this moment was refreshingly simple. A lunch, a conversation, a gathering, a reminder. The people who were there will remember the atmosphere, the connection, the feeling, and those are the things that last. Years from now, the Warrior Games competitors may remember their victories, their teammates, and their experiences. Families may remember the people they met, and some will remember that one day in Texas, Prince Harry joined them, served them lunch, and shared a moment with them. Not from a distance, not behind a barrier, right there, part of the community. And maybe that is the biggest message. The strongest impact is not always made by the loudest person in the room. Sometimes it comes from the person willing to step forward and help. Because service is not about being above people. It is about standing beside them. And at the 2026 Warrior Games, that is exactly what happened. Prince Harry stood beside the competitors, beside the families, beside the people who make the Warrior Games possible. And for those who experienced it, it was more than a barbecue lunch. It was a moment of connection, a moment of appreciation, a moment that showed the heart of what these games are truly about. People supporting people. And that message will always be bigger than any headline.